What's up, schoolmates? Alam nyo ba na this month of August ay hindi lang buwan ng wika? It's also a whole celebration for young change makers.
Tama ka dyan. It's ASEAN Youth Month 2025, a packed celebration of youth advocacy, peace, sustainability, and of course, solidarity. And tonight, we're joined by one of the leaders behind this movement.
Syempre, di ba, sobrang formal natin because naka-Filipiniana tayo today.
Tagalogin yan lahat.
Correct. Pero he's coming in with a chill attitude about this episode. So let's all welcome Myros Ponon, founder of ASEAN Youth Advocates Network. So Myros, before we dive in actually to ASEAN Youth Month 2025. So first of all, sa mga hindi nakakaalam, yung ASEAN Youth Advocates Network or AYAN, AYAN, what would you say is the mission and the history of your specific organization?
Wow. Actually, ang laki ng history na niya.
Okay.
Well, it started in 2019.
2019.
It wasn't a ASEAN organization then.
Okay.
I was first year university student, and we decided to start the Youth Advocates for the Philippines.
Wild,
So-
first year college and you decided to be this
Yeah.
involved. Okay.
So actually, a week before that, and hindi ko siya sinasabi usually sa media, but before that, a week before heading into college,
Okay.
I missed the orientation week.
I love that.
Sa university. Kasi I was celebrating, I was selected as one of the representatives sa Thailand. It was the
worth
ASEAN
it naman pala.
University Student Council Union
Wild.
Conference.
Okay.
So it was all about volunteering. Tapos the challenge there was to create something that can be impactful to your community. And so yung matagal ko nang hininaing in most
Okay.
organizations because I started volunteering when I was 9. Talagang I really started at a young age.
Wild.
Because
Okay.
lumaki ako sa Camarines Sur, sa Bicol, and
Okay.
eventually in Paco. And doon ko talaga nakita yung poverty, the problems that our society has. And
Okay.
so, yun. And then, growing up, I've always wanted to volunteer. I started to volunteer at 9, like what I've said. Tapos nakita ko na very excluded siya. Like, I wanted to
Okay.
join youth organizations then. And I
Pero-
remember being a 15-year-old, talagang OP ka talaga. OP ka kasi
Okay.
you were with university students, 19,
Yeah.
20, 21, 22. Tapos, very minimal pa yung organization at the time. Wala kang pagpipilian. At the same time, hindi mo feel na safe ka. And so,
Very cliquish, would you say, for
very
some...
exclusive and
yeah.
restrictive. And so, I feel like ang raming katulad ko then na gustong sumali sa mga organizations pero dahil restricted sila, ayun, they won't be themselves and
Right.
nasasayang yung potential. And so,
Right.
these two things, essentially, I combine them to creating my organization, Youth Advocates for the Philippines. Then the mission was just to create a safe space para sa mga kabataang Pilipino, para mahanap ang advocacy nila. Kasi one of my mentors
Okay.
told me that ang advocacy ay nakukuha sa pinaka malalim mong hugot. Your deepest advocacy
agree.
comes from your
Okay.
deepest hugot. And paano mo mahanap yung hugot kung most organizations may advocacy ng
Parang
focus.
ide-impose
Yeah,
sa
exactly.
inyo. Yeah.
And so why not create that organization para mahanap yung
Yeah.
advocacy nila. And so Youth Advocates for the Philippines started in 2019. Lumaki siya nung COVID. I
Growing
remember
strong, yeah.
it grew from 200 members to 10,000 members during the pandemic.
Wow.
Akala ko talagang hihina siya kasi I remember doing our annual meeting before COVID hit around
Okay.
the second week of March.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. We were supposed to shut down everything. We decided to focus on webinars, and from
Yeah.
200 to 10,000, we were the biggest youth organization in the Philippines. I'm confident to say from 10,000 likes, we grew from 10,000 to 250,000
Wild,
in
okay.
2 months. And so nakita namin yung potential ng kabataan. But also, nakita rin namin na very unsustainable siya. And so,
Because of the large
because yes,
base of the organization.
it
Okay.
was hard
Pero-
to handle for sure.
Pero sir, what's your best strategy kung bakit kayo nakapag-engage pa ng mga youth
Yeah.
na nag-grow kayo sa ganong dami ng mga learners?
Because I would say that for some organizations, it was very difficult to keep the members engaged, especially if
Yes.
everyone was like graduating. It's so easy when everyone's a student.
Yeah.
But then
Especially
like
pandemic days.
correct.
Yeah.
And then like I would like to say na with the specific niche that you have as an
Yeah.
advocacy, na parang helping others find that advocacy for themselves. Parang paano mo yun na help na you still have your core organization? Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, that was one of the reasons parang I knew then na hindi siya maglalast na ganun.
Okay.
Na eventually everything will go back to normal. I think na nasanay lang talaga tayo sa Zoom
Okay.
and online platforms.
Yes.
And so eventually it will all die down.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah, because I think it's apparent na talagang maraming sumasali that time. We knew what effective webinars were, what effective online campaigns were, pero yun, we also knew that it would end eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marami rin ang magagawa. Like,
Yeah.
mawawala rin ang attention span
Yeah.
and ang hype
Yeah.
sa mga advocacy webinars. And
Yes.
so, sakto, nagka-meeting the next week. I was invited by the ASEAN Secretariat about the youth plan for 2021 to 2025.
Okay, so
And
the
then
5-year spread plan usually.
The 5 years plan from all youth ministries,
Yes, yes.
including yung National Youth Commission natin. And yeah, doon ko nakita, it helped me and they gave me the advice to shift my organization into ASEAN-wide.
Okay.
And so from a simple mission for them to find their advocacy, we shifted, we changed our name to the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network, and our mission now is to advocate for young people for them to be civically engaged.
Okay.
And so back then, 19 ako, hindi ko alam kung how to make a mission vision. And so I think through that time, through the struggle as well, because it was very hard handling a big group. So of course there were problems. Pero yun, through the reshifting, it was also a way to right the wrongs and with the right mentors na natama namin lahat ng mali. And yeah, actually, of course, we just celebrated ASEAN Day last August 8th.
Yes, yes,
That was
August
also
8th.
the indicator of ASEAN, the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network, celebrating 5 years. And so, yeah, I think it's going strong and very proud of the organization.
Nakaka-proud yung ganun na
Totoo.
Ang hirap, maraming organizations that really died down even during the pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
that was such a huge challenge.
And ngayon, sir, for those schoolmates and youth na nanonood sa atin ngayon, let's talk about exciting. What is ASEAN Youth Month or AYM 2025 all about? And paano ito nag-evolve into week to month? Di ba, sir?
Yeah,
Parang
yeah.
ASEAN week lang to before And ngayon, month na siya.
It was week only until last year. No? Last year was when we changed it to ASEAN Youth Month. Back then, our idea was, the first online event that we did, we had 3,000 live participants because we had special guests, we had Catriona Gray, we had the biggest advocacy leaders, we had celebrities, we had Idolin Diaz and many other celebrities during that event. And then, nakita namin na, yun nga, when we started the organization, because it was around that time that the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network was founded, August 8, 2020, sabi namin, ano magagawin nating flagship program? And so we
Okay.
thought of ASEAN Youth Week to celebrate 2 events. First is yung Linggo ng Kabataan or International Youth Day, commemorated
yeah.
by the United Nations, but also to leverage on the fact that ASEAN Day is being celebrated on August 8. Laging
Okay.
magkalapit yan.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's the idea. Let's celebrate ASEAN Youth Week
Okay.
in this particular week every year. But
Okay.
we saw the logistical challenge because the 8 would never fall on a weekend.
Okay.
And then-
May challenge din sa
Yes.
participation.
Of course,
Oh,
yes. And then, one of the reasons why we were recommended to start the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network was because even less than we found out in our simple survey that 1 out of 10 only know what ASEAN is in the Philippines.
And I would definitely be part of the 9. Wow, joke lang. Okay.
and in ASEAN as a whole, where there's 200 million young people, I'm
Yeah.
sure this was a statistic in 2020. For sure,
Right.
now lumaki siya. Even less than, I think 0.5 out of 10 know what ASEAN is. And then to know what it does is less than 0.3 out of
Right.
10. And so
Yes.
talagang napakababa ng number. And so we were celebrating ASEAN Youth Week. Of course, for those who knew it, it was usually student leaders that wanted a certificate, that wanted to gain
Yeah.
international exposure. We knew this, but at the same time, I think one of the challenges that we still have today is the performativity of young people.
Correct.
And so to change that, talagang we wanted to do, we decided to do ASEAN Youth Month to make sure that our programs are aligned for every specific need and
Right.
advocacy
Right.
that has to be tackled.
Kasi ang hirap na you just do it for a short period of time and you know that the participants are just there for the sake of exposure.
Yeah.
And I love the term he used, performativity. And for me, it's like, that could mean 2 ways,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like, it's either performative in a sense na gusto talagang magsilbi, gusto talagang, to be actively engaged in a specific advocacy that they believe in.
Totoo.
But there's also performativity in a sense that I just want to be linked
Yes.
a specific organization or to show that I have an advocacy even though I don't really stand for anything. Diba?
And good thing din na naging month siya. Kasi ang big ng event eh. No? Parang pag kinumpres siya in a week, parang bitin siya.
Oo, or sobrang ngarag ka talaga as an
sobrang
organizer.
sayang
Yeah.
din, especially ang daming participants. So, good thing na naging month siya. No? Parang mas maraming mangyayari and
Correct.
mas marami ring may cater na mga youth
Correct.
na involved.
Yeah, and speaking of which, let's go back to the initial question by James. Ano ba talaga yung theme of the AYM this year? And parang given how the youth has evolved so much from the time of the pandemic until now, even you would say that parang, wait lang, parang I think I've gone through generations of members also in that short span of time. Ano yung theme and how does it relate to the needs of the Gen Z or the youth today, as you would say?
Okay, so I guess an insider info I would share is we usually combine the theme of International Youth Day that the United Nations posts
Okay.
and cascades to all the youth offices
Yes.
around the world, and also ASEAN's theme.
Okay.
Since it's the year 2025 and Malaysia is the host, inclusivity and sustainability is the target. And
yes,
so
okay.
we usually combine. It's either we choose one of these themes that we feel are relevant, but at times we choose our own.
Okay.
And this year we felt that the Malaysia's theme was really relevant
Okay.
for the youth, and so we decided to push through with it.
Okay, so what was it again? Sustainability and
Inclusivity and sustainability.
Okay. So how does that relate? Because for Gen Zs, it's always like when you say inclusivity, it's always tied to the LGBTQ plus community. That's
Right.
always the first perception. Pero parang, how is it more relevant or how is it really more inclusive now? Or are there any other sub-themes that would explore this? Also with regards to sustainability, because the first perception I have of that is, okay, does that mean environment? Or how does it encompass? Does it mean economies, education? How does that work?
I think it's all interconnected. I think these two terms are big buzzwords. Talagang malaking buzzword siya na for young people nowadays, especially now with AI, like in your last episode, napakadali
Yes.
niyang gamitin ngayon. But
So,
minsan
ang
di
bilis
natin
nila.
alam
Correct.
di natin alam kung ano ba talaga siya. We
Correct.
know it by definition, pero we don't know it by heart.
Yeah.
And so, well, for me, inclusivity is yun nga, essentially kasama ka. Kasama
Okay.
ka dapat sa lahat. In terms of us as ASEAN, dapat kasama ka sa decision making, kasama
Love
ka
that.
dapat sa
Okay.
polisiya,
Okay.
kasama ka dapat sa konsultasyon, not for the sake of being tokenized, not for the sake na, ay, government agency kami or non-profit kami, isama ka namin para masabi namin na pinapakinggan namin ng
Yes.
kabataan.
Yeah.
And most events, gagawa ka ng youth statement, tapos yun na yun, wala nang mangyayari. And so,
The involvement ends with just the lobbying.
so it's
Sorry.
tokenistic.
Yeah.
It's tokenistic. And also in terms of sustainability, feeling natin kapag nag-tree planting tayo, which still most public schools here today,
CSRs! Yeah, oo
talagang
nga.
wala. And,
Okay.
and greenwashing is a thing, tinuturo siya, pero minsan tayo na rin ang nagiging greenwashers. The way we
Correct.
teach
Yes.
and the way we do it. And so, I think in these two terms, kahit napakasimple niya, we decided to focus on this. Of course, we have a lot of sub-themes, but these two terms, kahit alam na, ito, paulit-ulit siyang ginagawa. Of course, we know the Sustainable Development Goals and all. Ang rami pa. Talagang, we really need to make sure na madadigest siya.
Correct.
Yeah, it has to be digested by a 5-year-old. Kaya,
Love that.
ang
Interesting.
recently nakatuwa
Break
kasi
it down, yeah.
one of the non-profits in the Philippines posted a Tagalog version of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is good kasi talagang these are big words to take in as well. Like, I wouldn't
Yes.
expect someone from the provinces that
Would understand
would
that.
understand.
Oo, diba?
Kaya I think it's very
Metro
relevant and
Manila-centric pa rin talaga yung...
present. Yeah.
For now, Sir Myrus, let us hold it up muna because later we'll spill more tea on what's happening this Youth Month 2025. Dito lang yan sa Iskoolmates!
Nagbabalik ang Schoolmates! Now that we've already set the scene and set the context kanina of what AYM is about, let's zoom in sa pinaka-inaabang events this August. So, Myros, isa sa pinaka-highlights nga daw ng ASEAN Youth Month ay ang ASEAN Youth Advocates Summit or AYAS. So, AYAS,
AYAS,
right?
yes.
So, and it will tackle into the topics like identity, environment, livelihoods, which you've also given like context already kanina, na yun yung parang arcing theme din natin, di ba? And of course, hindi natin makakalimutan yung social welfare, di ba? And health, which is primarily after the pandemic is more important now than ever, right? Paano nyo ba napili na ito yung mga sektor na dapat nating pagfokusan, especially with such a broad term like sustainability and inclusivity? And how would you say these topics are relevant now?
I think like a thesis, no? I mean, alam natin as youth, as kabataan, ayaw talaga natin gumagawa ng thesis. But of
Correct.
course, kailangan mo ng prior research.
Right.
And so talagang we look for the recent statistics from the World Bank. Of
Yeah.
course, talagang you have to think global but also act local. And so
Yeah.
titingnan muna namin yung global issues. And then from the global issues, titingnan natin yung local issues. Of course, we also had to validate it, of course, through the last State of the Nation address of our president and also of the ASEAN summit that's happening. And so, ang rami namin kailangan tingnan na factors. And
Yes.
so, once everything is fit in, I think, actually for me, that's the easy part eh. Kasi ang raming problema. Marami tayong problema.
Maraming pwede identify the problem, di ba? Correct.
Well, actually, for context, now I study in Europe. I'm a scholar in Europe now. Doon, hirap sila magkaroon ng problema. Talagang naghahanap lang sila ng problema, I would say.
Love that.
And so,
isn't that such a nice life to have? As a third world country, I can only say I wish.
And
di
so
ba?
compared to here, talagang it's night and day. And so it's the easy part, of course. And then once we decide on these topics, the hardest part now is to choose the speakers that would be genuine enough to state the real status of these current problems, tackle issues that have to be tackled. And so I think the roster of speakers as well has been really tremendous by the volunteers of the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network. Our Philippines chapter is very active in organizing it. Of course, our global chapter is also, our global office is also really looking into it. And so, yeah, I think the reason why a lot of young people, maraming kabataan ay sumasali is because they really see the relevance in the topics that we give.
Right. You mentioned kanina na marami kang kino-cross-reference in terms of which issues to highlight.
Yeah.
But I guess in all of it, how we choose the relevance is what seems to be the most pressing. Diba?
Yeah.
Kung ano yung, kumbaga, meron tayong echo chamber din na nangyayari sa Pilipinas.
Yeah.
Eh. Kung ano yung sinasabi on social media and ano yung bukang bibig ng pangkaraniwang tao, most likely yun din naman yung una mong maiisip na, hindi, ito talaga yung pressing issue natin today. And parang, nung sinabi niya kanina na yung pinakamalalim mong hugot, yun yung magiging advocacy mo. Paminsan kasi I would say na the majority sometimes become blind na wait lang, hindi lang yan yung root cause actually ng issue natin. Mas kailangan natin pag-usapan to because if we solve this, mas marami tayong masosolusyonan at matutulungan, di ba? So I think that's just tying it back, no, na I like how the mission and the vision of your organization is for students, for the youth to actually find what strikes them. Na parang, ito yung, for me, kailangan masolusyon ang problema. Hindi lang tayo dapat nag-identify ng problema. Pero like, finding the solution to that problem should be the pathway.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought that volunteerism ended for me after college.
Yeah.
And it was so sad to hear now, pag kinain ka na ng real-world problems, especially for Gen Zs who are graduating now, you think all this activism, all this volunteerism, spirit that you have right now is something you will carry on.
Yeah.
No, sometimes it dies with you. But you have to find those organizations that can find that spark again, na pag-usapan yung mga problema, not as an individual, pero parang, as a collective tayo, kaya natin tong solusyonan, regardless of what stage of life you're in, right?
Yeah,
So,
if I may add, I think it's also very important to take note that most of the big universities nowadays have no student council. I think student
ang tagal na,
student
bago
performance
nagpalit.
has been
Oo.
dying. Talagang student after 2022, I'd say, talagang nakita natin yung low
Nag-decline.
engagement ng mga kabataan. And even before, like what you've said, usually nawawala na ang engagement ng mga kabataan after college because of course extracurriculars is part of grades, it's part of
It's part of
resume
their-
building.
yeah. It's a
Talagang that's
line on
true.
their resume. Yeah.
And as much as, of course, we can call them cloud chasers, marami tayong pwedeng sabihin about them. It's also our society that enables us.
that. Correct.
Talagang we're driven in a society where certificates are important, especially now in this competitive world. But also, I also want to point out kasi napaka-importante. Like most youth organizations, even Sangguniang Kabataan, they would always look for the pressing issue. Kaya paulit-ulit ang mga Linggo ng Kabataan events.
Yeah.
And so,
pageants and basketball, sorry.
yeah.
Just
Well,
had to say that.
there are good
Sorry.
SKs out there.
Okay.
May, of course, ngayon, very booming ang mental health. Ang problema, hindi mga professionals ang kinukuha nila for mental health. And so,
Social media diagnosis.
exactly, marami ng ganyan.
Correct.
And so, I think I would like to reiterate na I think the youth nowadays really fail to fall in love with the problem. And I think dapat na-in love ka dapat sa problema, hindi sa solusyon. Tayo mahilig tayo gumawa ng solusyon agad. Lalo na ngayon, kapag may problema, hanapin yung ChatGPT. But like what you've said, you really have
One
to
click lang
find the core. You really have to find
Okay.
the core, the root cause of the problem. And I think kulang na talaga tayo sa critical thinking. I mean,
Correct.
Totoo.
nakita naman natin yung statistics natin in terms of education. And that I still believe, if you were to ask me what's the biggest problem that has to be resolved by the country, I'm still a big believer that it's education.
Correct.
Yeah.
Pero may question lang ako, 'di ba? Speaking of having certificates, may mga students ba na sumasali just because of gaining certificate na totally hindi naman talaga gusto sumali? Parang for the sake of gaining certificate lang, para may experience lang ako, para may add lang ako sa resume. May experience po ba kayong ganun?
Yeah, and I think kailangan talaga natin siyang tanggapin. At first, I was a big skeptic about it. Talagang, for example, when we were doing online events, dapat may check-in every 10 minutes. Kasi, for example, sa Zoom, ang daling makita ko sino yung tulog lang for the whole
Yes,
event.
yung nawawala.
Log in,
Yeah.
off cam, off mic.
Aminin mo.
And wala. No, I think we've all done it kasi may mga meetings
Yes,
talagang
yes.
nakakatamad. Pero in terms of on-site things, as much as we try to be strict, talagang may makakalusot at makakalusot. And
Right.
so, kailangan talaga natin tanggapin yon, and I think we still give certificates. I mean, at the end of it all, it's a certificate of participation, hindi
Yeah.
siya of contributions, and which
It's
is why we give
mediocre,
a separate
sorry.
one on that.
Totoo.
Mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, sir, aside from AS, can you tell us more about the other major events of this month?
So August is a very big month. So now, of course, it's August 14 now.
Yeah.
We started our first event in Miriam on August 2.
Okay.
So we had a speaker from, it was all about social entrepreneurship and sustainability. So one of my friends who I've met is a startup that created this app to create plants in indoor spaces. Kasi meron siyang device na nakikita niya yung air quality ng most indoor
Okay.
areas, and talagang malala, pangit, especially, I mean, kita naman natin outside within the Philippines. And so we also have online events, but also our local chapters, our 8 local chapters around ASEAN are doing their own events as well. So for example, in Laos, they're doing our human rights events. Brunei is more on climate action and education. And so they're doing a big series right now. I think they're the biggest youth organization in Brunei right now. We're doing events in Indonesia, of course, with Malaysia as the chair. We recently co-presented the Rain Forest Action Youth Summit. So it was in the indigenous tribe and indigenous community in Sarawak in Malaysia. And so marami nangyari, of course, but it's also big internally because we get to know who the next Secretary General of ASEAN would be. We get to know the new officers. We get to know. So maraming organizational shifts, maraming events ang global office, and of course, maraming events ang chapters. And so, yeah, talagang
Yeah.
it's a festival. And it can, I'm not saying that ASEAN Youth Month is perfect. I think it can definitely be improved. But I think now, if I were to self-criticize myself, it's still very Philippine-centric. Of course, may
Correct.
excuse ako for next year kasi Philippines ng chair ng
Yeah.
ASEAN. I will be the
Okay,
hosting
love
country.
that.
But I think as the years go by, talagang we want it to be a festival talaga. Kaya
Yeah.
it has to be a festival and a celebration of young people and our community as ASEAN, as Southeast Asia.
Sorry, I want to go back to how you said na ASEAN is very Philippine-centric. I would agree because in our country, we make it such a big thing to talk about ASEAN. But then again, we fail to see that ASEAN is not just Philippines.
Yeah.
Yes.
Na parang kailangan yung
Tayo yung bida.
Oo, bida-bida lang yung Pilipinas.
It's all
sorry.
about us. Ano
Yeah, totoo. But then I would say na it's right kasi iba yung issues natin ngayon. But we can definitely see a mirroring issue in other countries as well. So parang syempre, the way for us to find the solution is to check how other countries also try to find the solution to that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'd like to ask is, how do you, pinag-usapan natin ito off-screen, very cliquish, exclusive, the words that we use in ASEAN Youth Month, and the sustainable development goals, even at the very core,
Yeah.
are very exclusive to those who have a higher level of education.
Yeah.
How do you, I'm just curious, what kind of events are you doing to make sure that it's brought back down to the community roots? Like, have you hosted, I've heard a couple of
Tanong ko
names of
sana
school.
yan.
Diba? Diba?
Oo.
Yung number of schools. But then, we would know that it's just the select few
Yeah,
schools.
yeah.
Yeah.
How do you open up that conversation to the other types of, other schools in the far-flung areas?
Yeah, I think malaki siyang challenge sa amin because we are an ASEAN-wide organization. And so
Okay.
first, talagang gusto namin we rely on the local chapters to do that.
Okay.
But if they can't, that's where our partnerships really go into. I think one thing that we've been trying to do is make ASEAN Youth Summits. We call it Youth Advocate Summit that we do every schools pre-pandemic when we were still a
Okay.
Philippine organization. This is something that we want to do school by school.
Okay.
Also, we also recognize na
It's like a
kapag-
roadshow for the different schools.
But
Love
also, we also recognize that we're not the best when it comes to dealing with grade school and high school kids.
Okay.
I think social workers are very important when it comes to this. And so we partner with organizations that really are best catered to this.
Okay.
One of the organizations is I Am Making a Difference, that where we send some of our volunteers to, kung gusto talaga nilang lumapit sa grassroots, talagang
Okay.
dun sila sumasali. I think we want to do everything. Of course, yun yung pangarap ko sa organization. I want it to be my full-time job
But you
and
can only
everything.
do so much.
But you can only do so much. Talagang voluntary. And so,
Correct.
am I doing
You're doing everything
enough?
you can.
Yes, we're doing
Yes,
everything
you're
that we
doing
can.
everything you
But
can.
in the future, I think one of the ways that we're moving forward is by 2030, we hope to have this advocacy center in Bicol, because we had a lot of sponsors that really wanted us to make this sustainable event place
Okay.
and farm
Okay.
in Bicol and Camarines Sur. And so
Sustainable ecotourism is also.
yeah, so I feel like once we do that, mas madali mag-reach out.
Correct.
And so eventually, talagang kailangan talaga ng infrastruktura at ng
Oo.
suporta
Oo.
ng lahat ng stakeholders, ng government, ng private sector para yun nga, para mas ma-reach out
Love
ang
that.
mga kabataan. For now, we're just really building our brand.
And actually, sir, ang ganda na mention mo, no, since we're talking about inclusivity and knowing the Philippines, sobrang ang daming grupo na dapat isama sa isang layunin. Like for
Oo.
example, this kind of advocacy natin na we're talking about engaging everyone in terms of LGBTQ, indigenous groups, na dapat talaga may spot din sila dito. And
Correct.
kasali dapat sila. Kasi ayun ang layunin natin.
Yes, yes. And siguro parang just to have a quick break because I think the schoolmates are also getting info overloaded.
Yes.
So sana nandiyan pa
Nabombarded
kayo.
na sila.
Parang Zoom to, no? Meron tayong check-in.
Yeah.
Hello, nakikinig pa ba kayo? Nandito
Crash
tayo
course.
ngayon, correct. Sa quick trip around ASEAN. So sa mga nakakaalam dyan, this is a quiz round. Wow!
Wow!
Quiz! In 30 seconds lang naman. We would do it rapid fire style, okay?
Okay, okay.
So no overthinking, just instinct.
Okay.
So let's see how the advocacy passport holds up. Okay, go.
Let's go.
First, speak now or organize behind the scenes.
Speak now.
Speak now. Advocacy, born or built?
Boring or built?
Born or built?
Built.
Built, okay.
Personal passion or shared mission?
Shared mission.
Shared vision. Okay, workshops or mentorship?
Mentorship.
Mentorship.
Long game or quick wins?
Long game.
Change policy or change minds?
Change minds.
Change minds. Parang ako
Gusto ko
din
yung
naisip
naisip
doon.
ko
Okay.
Hirap.
Okay, ito. Career advocate or lifelong volunteer?
Lifelong volunteer.
30 seconds na yun! 30
Ah!
seconds
Sayang,
na
gusto ko
yun!
sana makuha lahat
Pwede bang
eh. Sayang.
Try lang namin. Meron
Sige,
pa,
sige.
may isa. Sustainability or impact?
Impact.
Impact, okay.
Awareness or action?
Action.
Okay. Climate justice or economic justice?
Climate justice.
Okay.
Agree. Hindi ka lang agree sa dulo.
Agree agad
Agree
siya.
ako doon
Okay,
sa
okay.
climate justice.
Well, ang bilis niyo mag-isip. Ako din nag-isip, ano ba yung sasagot ko
Oo,
dito?
diba? Sobrang
Okay.
solid nun. Thank you, Sir Myros, for navigating that round with clarity and conviction. Ngayon, huwag kayong bibitaw because we've got lot more coming up. Dito lang sa Schoolmates!
Welcome back sa Schoolmates. So, naging parte ang Schoolmates sa isang highlight event ng ASEAN Youth Month that took place in MCU or Manila Central University. It was a collaboration or a collab event between MCU in partnership with ASEAN, the students that went all in sa usapang leadership, advocacy, at kung paano maging boses ng kabataan today. Very timely sa
Yes.
Schoolmates. So, let's not keep you waiting at panoorin po natin ito.
ASEAN Philippines started our pool of research for our partners for this years, and actually we started partnering with their student council as well. And since our meeting po requires the presence of the administration actually send the interest to partner with us directly instead of their student organizations lang po. So with that, nagkaroon po kami ng seated meeting, and of course mga collaboration meeting po that could actually na nakapag-lead din po kung ano po yung meron po tayo ngayon, which is the ASEAN Youth Month Philippines. One of the major purpose of this event, of course, is to empower the Manila Central University students, to advance the sustainable development goals, to be aware of our purpose, since it's really an urgent call for us that we only have 5 years left before the 2030 agenda, and we see the urgent of working together for this one, and we see that partnering with INPH and Manila Central University could actually help our organization and their initiative as well to advance more of our initiative this year. And of course, one we look forward is matuto yung mga students po natin magkaroon ng mga plano, hindi lang dahil sa natutunan na today, but kung ano pa yung magagawa nila sa mga susunod po na mga araw at henerasyon. At of course, sa mga taon na darating pa para sa ASEAN. We really see na ang mga kabataan ay kapag empowered, they work together para sa ikakaunlad ng Pilipinas and of course the ASEAN region to build cultural understanding, para magkaroon ng pagkakaisa, pagkakaunawa, and of course, to work towards kung ano nga ba yung goal natin, because we believe that one identity, one ASEAN youth, and one for the community. As an organizer, masaya sa part namin na hindi lang sila matututo, but actually mabubuhay, magigising, na kumilos din on their own sa kanilang mga kanilang komunidad, na hindi lang sa kanilang mga paaralan, but to actually build their own network as well, para hindi lang, dahil naniniwala rin tayo, na hindi lang naman si ASEAN Philippines ang nagtatrabaho for the advancement of the SDGs, but we believe na kung sama-sama tayo, mas marami tayong mararating.
The communities are global. The challenge is to put community in that globality. Ibig lang sabihin, since interconnected ang world na ngayon, lahat ng gagawin natin, maaaring magkaroon ng global impact. Hindi ka na kailangang lalayo pa. Nasa komunidad mo lang ang action. So community action. Now, ang kailangan lang, solidarity all over the world so that we can have a more effective action, especially kung climate change pinag-usapan, especially kung global issues like hunger. Any global issues can only be addressed effectively if there's global action. Ito yung bago ngayon, In a highly interconnected world, community action is global action.
Iniibitahan namin kayo na makiisa sa pag-usbong ng ASEAN, and of course ng ating goal para sa ASEAN community. We believe na kapag tayo ay sama-sama, maliit man ang iyong bag, malaki man ang iyong nagagawa, all of that matters. Kaya kung ano man ang iyong nararamdaman ngayon, ano man ang humahadlang sa iyo ngayon, you are welcome to join the movement. Because this is not just our initiatives, this is our mission together.
Ayan! And ngayon, of course, we have the last message and encouragement para rin sa ating mga schoolmates. So, Myros, take it away.
This is important because I tackled this in a TED Talk I did in Belgium. I think it's to embrace discomfort. Nowadays, tayong mga kabataan, gusto natin lahat instant, gusto natin talagang lahat, we are very entitled nowadays. And so I think it's important to embrace discomfort in order to become critical thinkers, critical doers, and to become upright and active citizens. Number 2 is to be authentic. Nowadays, we feel like we have two lives, life offline and life online. Let's try to be authentic because for me personally, I think napakaunti na lang ng genuine na tao sa mundo na ito, and so why not be one of them? And third is patuloy ang pagtindig. I think alam natin, sabi nga ni Jose Rizal, tayo ang pag-asa ng bayan, pero paano tayo maging pag-asa ng bayan kung wala tayong ginagawa para sa bayan? Kaya tayo naging advocate, kaya tayo naging volunteer, kasi gusto natin mas mapaganda ang ating kinabukasan ng bansa.
Love that.
Yes.
Okay, so Ikaw muna, James.
Yes.
Wala
Ako
na
naman,
akong
yung,
masabi.
yung takeaway ko this episode is actually yung kagandahan ng inclusivity and collaboration. Knowing na sa ating bansa, ang daming pagkakaiba ng bawat individual
Maraming
na dapat
faction.
bigyan, na
Yeah.
dapat bigyan ng atensyon. Like for example, the PWDs, the LGBTQ, the indigenous people, which is magandang aspeto or magandang layunin din no ng ASEAN or ng ASEAN, and na masama ito para sa ganun hindi nila ma-feel na left out sila, and
Yeah.
para mas lumawak pa yung saklaw ng organisasyon na ito. And of course, yung collaboration din with indigenous people, gaya nga na na-mention kanina, na yung sa mga malalayong lugar, maganda no na naabot natin sila para sa ganun hindi lamang yung mga taga Manila ang makaka-gain ng knowledge about this, bagkus pati na rin yung mga tao na mahirap abutin, na possible naman ma-reach. Pero in the longer term, syempre mahirap yun.
Yes.
And I wish sana ma-achieve natin yun. And of course, ngayon ko lang din na-realize no, na parang by the help of performing arts din, na parang magagamit din to, no, isa rin itong magandang tool para makapagturo no ng mga learners natin, especially yung mga youth natin na mas nalululong ngayon sa teknolohiya, no, by the use of music, theater arts, dances, mas mapapalawak natin no kung ano yung kagandahan ng sariling atin. Lalo pa ngayon, may very rampant na ang mga misinformation.
Correct.
And I think good thing and magandang tool ang performing arts para makapagturo sa mga students natin, especially maitama yung mga maling impormasyon na yun.
Right. And I think when you said earlier na magandang avenue yung music at saka yung performing arts, ngayon kasi kailangan din ma-build sa mga learners natin sa murang edad pa lang. And
Yes.
what's the better or the best way to have them engage on something that seems exciting, 'di ba? And sana dun sa mga guro din, like you,
Yes.
future teacher, na parang start them young. Na sa murang edad pa lang, maging mulat na sila na kung ito yung mga problema nakita na sa bahay, sa barangay, sa mga organisasyon, hindi lang itong mga problema na problemang pang Pilipinas lang. Malamang, itong mga problema na ito also is existing in other countries. Sorry to say, but in a lot of third world countries.
Right.
And maybe, sa mga learners din natin magsisimula, ano ba yung possible na solusyon? Diba?
Yes.
So, I would like also to commend the organizations such as this, that you like to keep the fire alive in the youth. And it speaks to me, as someone who was previously engaged in a lot of youth organizations, it felt as if I was doing it because I wanted to become a leader. But I couldn't find that passion yet, that advocacy yet, that stuck with me. So I think that's also why I'm here still in Schoolmates. Kasi it gave me an avenue to still be in the know, to still learn from fellow students who also graduated, who are fellow leaders now, pioneers in their field. Na, wait, wow, sila nakahanap na sila ng advocacy. Maybe my advocacy is this show. Diba? Na parang ASEAN Youth Month is so closely tied with Schoolmates. Especially for me. Kasi ang mga kabataan ngayon, I've seen many generations also of my own generation evolve. And it feels as if we're talking about the same issues, pero never natin siya nasusolusyonan. And now is the time for us, especially in ASEAN Youth, hindi siya dapat event lang. It should be a way to craft the minds of the new leaders. And it shouldn't stop in ASEAN Youth, diba? And it should become new leaders of the government, new global leaders also, na wait, maraming magagawa ang Pinoy. Kasi tayong how would I say, sadlak sa kahirapan. Romanticizing
Marami
poverty,
tayong hugot.
Sorry, marami tayong hugot bilang Pilipino. And maybe that's something that we can bring out of ourselves sa mga kabataan. You want to be relevant, you want to be famous, do something about this.
Yes.
Maybe if you become a thought leader, you'll become more relevant. Kasi
Make a change.
yung legacy mo is not something that's just viral on the internet.
Yeah.
Pero something that made changes with the lives of not just Filipinos, pero ASEAN countries as well. Diba? So parang sana yung ASEAN Youth Month, nanginayang ako. Kasi feeling ko, hindi ko na-involve yung sarili ko nung I was a student. So sana yung mga schoolmates natin, now's your chance. You wanted to be relevant, you wanted to learn more, you want to stay ahead of the game, learn more about this. Kasi dito sa mga sustainable development goals na to, dito yung next career path nyo.
Yes.
Dito yung next path nyo to become relevant to the society, di ba? So, dami kong feels sa episode na to. At syempre, papasalamatan natin si Myros. Thank you so much for all that you do and the organizations that you lead. Ayan. At syempre, huwag natin kakalimutan pasalamatan ang
BP Studio!
Thank you so much sa bagong
Maraming
Pilipinas
salamat
Studios.
po.
Yes. So, syempre, it takes a village for us to keep going. So, maraming salamat sa bagong Pilipinas Studio, sa mga researchers natin dyan sa likod. And with that, sa bawat kwento, sa bawat issue, may boses tayong mga kabataan.
Sumali makinig at makiisa dahil ang bawat opinion natin ay mahalaga.
Kaya naman, sabay-sabay nating isigaw sa buong mundo, Schoolmates at ASEAN,
May pakialam ka!